Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I have a card featuring a new release from Ink Blot Shop. This is a 6x8 stamp set called Little School, and Tiffany from Ink Blot Shop reached out and asked me if I'd like to work with this set for the release. I thought the characters were really adorable, and I like that they can be colored in many different ethnicities and races. I really prefer stamp sets that have a little bit more diversity like that because, as many of you know, I donate my cards and I really like for them to be representative of a large number of people. So this stamp set has the 6 different kiddos and then a bunch of like little small image like hearts, stars, school supplies, because it's mostly suited for back to school, and it has a back to school sentiment and work hard, but it also can work well for general cards or encouragement cards like the you can do this or you've got this. And I like that all of the sentiments are both in the print and then in a scripty font, because I think then you can sort of customize it a little bit more to the particular kid. I think these would make great like lunchbox notes, and so if your student is learning cursive in school, it can be great practice for them to read their note in cursive, for example. So I'm going to take the little images from the stamp set and create my own custom pattern paper just by stamping them on white cardstock. I picked a purple ink. I find it a little bit tricky to find purple pattern paper because it seems like they only include purple pattern paper for Halloween. And therefore, when I want to do a purple card, I often find myself, instead of reaching for and digging through all my pattern paper packs, just making something custom. And in fact, I actually am trying to keep less and less pattern paper on hand because of working in a small space. So if you're the kind of person who also works in a small space or has a small budget, this can really be a simple and easy way to increase your options without having to increase your storage or your cost. Most people like to keep a couple of colors of ink on hand and white cardstock if they're a card maker. So this can allow you to suddenly have custom pattern paper or patterns to match whatever you want. I made sure that I stamped in all different directions and off the edges of the paper so that it looked more like a traditional piece of pattern paper. I also made sure all 3 stamps were on my block at one time because that makes it go a lot faster. I think it honestly took like 5 minutes to stamp that pattern paper, which can be a lot. But as a Copic colorist, I spent a lot of time Copic coloring, so I don't mind adding that, or taking that time for the rest of my card as well. And I will show you a little tip that's going to make that kind of get like a little bit of a 2-for-1 with that pattern paper. I also don't like to keep a bunch of colors of cardstock on hand. Again, it's expensive and it takes up a lot of space. So if I only need like a little bit for a mat, I can just take that ink color I just used and swipe it all along the edges. I'm cutting out my heart pattern paper with my Cat Scrappiness stitched scallop rectangles, and then I'm going to cut a smaller panel with the same set of dies so that I can add my focal image. Now, I'm going to be covering most of that heart pattern paper, but I decided to cut out the center with an even smaller version of the die from the same die set, so that I could save that for a future project. And that's what I mean about, like, if you want to, you spent 5 minutes making that paper, if you want to get a little bit more out of it, you can save any scraps or any parts you're not going to use by die cutting out of the center. I'm going to stamp my little girl with a Copic friendly ink because I will be Copic coloring her and sharing all the details of that. But once I have her and the sentiment, which in this case I picked the "you can do this," which I think again is a great encouraging sentiment, and I did it in the print so that it could be well suited for a child of any age. Then I will be this is colored, I'll layer it on the heart, and then on the solid paper, and then on my card panel. So if you're not interested in the Copic coloring, that's pretty much it with the card. And now I'll go into some of the detail of how I chose to color this image. I decided to go with purple for the dress, which is BV08, 04, and 02 in this instance. This is a more blue purple than what I decided to do for the background. And I think that that works out because it makes it a little bit more noticeable. If I had decided to match it exactly, the little girl might not stand out as much. So, you know, it's kind of up to you, but like think about the undertones. If you are going for, if you have like a reddish purple, you might want to look at your V markers. But if you have more of a bluish purple, then you're going to go to your BVs. The RVs are technically red violets, but they read very pink to me, so I wouldn't recommend using those. This is actually one of my favorite purple combinations, even though it is a very bluish purple. And it is a little tricky to blend the BV08 into the BV04, but because the BV08 is often my shadow color, I actually like it to have a really high contrast. I'm going to use E27, 25, and 23 for the skin today. It's one of my go-to combinations for black skin tones, but I actually have a video featuring another adorable stamp set from the Ink Blot shop that shares a few more different Copic combinations for black skin that you might like or get some ideas from. I also think it's fun when you're making a card specifically for someone to try to find a stamp that is similar to their hairstyle, or to mix up and modify the hairstyle on the stamp to suit them, and then to kind of think about, like, well, what's their eye color, their skin tone, etc. So it's good to have a couple of versions. Obviously, no person who is black has, like, not every black person has the same skin tone. Not every white person has the same skin tone. And so having a couple for each general skin grouping can be really helpful. And I'm bad at keeping track of those, but I kind of just have it up in my head. But Sandy Allnock has a resource on the Human Rainbow where she shares a number of skin tones skin combinations that she really likes. So that might be something worth checking out. I like to add a little bit of detail to the face by emphasizing the nose, and so I take my darkest marker and I draw 2 little lines on the side of the nose, and then I blend it out to my lightest color, but the actual nose itself I don't go over again so that it stays nice and light, and it darkens up what's around it just a tiny bit and gives that little bit of detail to this more cartoonish stamp. And I love cartoony stamps, like that is my thing. So but it can be nice to add just a little bit of detail to them. I forgot to color her little hairband, so I went back quickly to do that, and then I'm going to move on to the hair. When I am coloring black characters, I like to do an overall coat because I'm going to be making the curly hair. I want to, whenever there's like little gaps in between the curls, I don't ever want that to be stark white because I don't feel like that's very realistic, so having a base coat can be really helpful. I'm going to use C5, C7, C9 here, but I'm also going to bring in a brown because I think that's a little bit more realistic. When I'm coloring just a tiny amount of hair, like if it's, I colored some elves recently and there was a little tiny hair sticking out from under their hat. So I keep it really simple, and I think I just went in with like a C9 and maybe a C5. But the more hair you have on any image, I think the more colors you want to add in terms of adding interest. So if you're, any ethnicity you were coloring, I would recommend the more hair, the more colors. But here, I want to make it look a little more realistic, so I want to add some brown into the hair. I'm taking E79. It's a dark brown. It's also a pretty warm brown. I think E49 works well. E89 is not my favorite, but would work. Anything really with a 9 at the end in the E families is pretty good. Then I'm going to come in with the C9. I'm going to be making circles, but they're not all complete circles. They're kind of like C's most of the time. And I'm going to make sure that when I'm making these curls throughout her hair, I'm going to go sometimes clockwise and sometimes counterclockwise, so the hair has a lot of texture and looks more natural. I'm also going to consider that closer to her head, there's going to be a little bit more hair, and then as you move away, it's going to probably thin out a bit more, and so you want to keep more of your darks closer to the face, and then make it a little bit lighter, a little less dense as you go out from the face. And then I did the C9, I blended down to the C7, the C5, circles the whole time with those. I'm never going to be, coloring with marker strokes again. It's all going to be the coloring as I blend it out. Or sorry, the circling as I blend it out. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm going to be coloring her shoes and her little saddlebag here with the teal colors because that's one of my favorite things to mix up with purple. I like purple and teal, and then if I need a third color, I'm almost always pink. So very, very traditional there, I guess. It was a very popular color combination. But I'm going to use BEG 18, 15, 13. Keep it real simple, drop shadows. There would be a shadow like where it meets her shoulder, or the flap of the bag casts a shadow on the main body of the bag. And then I'll come in with a little C0 for what is essentially white on her, but that way it just adds a little bit of color. And that is basically it for my card today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafty tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I will be leaving you links in the video description to the products that I used in this video, as well as to some of the other products that are part of this new release, as there are a lot of really cute stamp sets and some that I have my eye on. Tiffany is going to be offering a free gift with purchase for this release, so it's going to either be a pen or a mini stamp set, so I encourage you to check that out. That'll be in the video description. And here's like a really quick peek and rundown of some of the different other stamp sets from the release. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate all of your time. Have an awesome day. Bye.